Welcome to Invest, talk about investing, finance, and professional development. For today's terms only, the instrument talk today will be Ethereum ETH. So it's my first video ever today with respect to this Saturday or Sunday, depending on what time zone you're in. I'm currently in a different time zone as well. I'm actually on the Pacific time zone. I'm in San Francisco at the moment, recording from a hotel room. So I currently don't have a secondary camera to be recording my face. So that's why you don't really see my screen of my face today. You only see the chart in front of us. So with respect to this news that I've been reading, as I was on the plane and also, just waiting at the airport throughout the day, looking for a place to record, I couldn't find any place that's quiet. And apologies if you hear any background noise as well. I don't really have a mic that can filter out all the external noise, if you may. So with respect to some of the news I've been picking up, collectively speaking, I would say is a lot of like non-substantive or trivial news, if you may. With respect to one news talked about on Bazinga about 8 hours ago, with respect to Ethereum-based NFT project, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So the article is basically talking about with respect to the initialization by this specific artist, his background, his experience so far, and his long-term vision or value proposition of this yacht club going forward, right? Which is getting some popularization and commercialization among the artistic community, as we have seen recently, right? And then another one talking about with respect to Bazinga again. If you have $5,000 right now, would you put it on Ethereum or baby Dogecoin? So basically, it's another regurgitation or comparison news, if you may. Talk about the long-term value proposition of two. I wouldn't even categorize with these two specific crypto assets, to be parallel. They're comparable, obviously, in the same comparable asset class, but in terms of like their utilization and long-term value proposition, I think they're very, very differentiated, right? So interesting read, but it's more just a speculative type of persuasive news, if you may. Respect to other one on CNBC about 8 hours ago, talk about the investor's guide to Cardano, which has mysteriously risen to become number 3 in crypto world at the moment, right? As we have seen the surge on Cardano recently, we hit almost, if you look at the chart, to hit above $3 and $3.10 specifically, but it seems like we are just kind of zigzagging up and down away, and now we're kind of cooling off to be trading at the $2.85 level right now. So with respect to being searched up on the third level, I think using Solana would be more of a comparable example, knowing the fact that we've seen the surge that we've experienced so far. I'm not sure about why they specifically talks about Cardano as the third largest crypto. Maybe by surge, but maybe by in terms of popularization. But not sure why they specifically named as a third largest crypto at the moment. I think they mean it by popularity contest. And then the last one that's more substantive is really coming to crypt about 15 hours ago. So earlier this day, with respect to Ethereum has been burned more than is being minted in the last 24 hours. So this is more just talking about the supply and demand imbalance that we've been experiencing so far for Ethereum to sustain to the level that we at right now, right? So now take a look at the technical analysis specifically. Currently, we are recording this off at 11:10 p.m. on a Pacific time, trading $3,856, trade on a sideways fashion, while overall the crypto market is relatively red right now, right? So you can see that we have leaped up relatively sharply from the August 30th, and we had that 2 large green candle, and we subsequently hit the apex that we have hit recently to $4,028.94, and seems like we're normalizing, cooling down a little bit because of the long Labor Day weekend, and also with respect to the news that we're hearing, it seems like it's just more fried rice regurgitation news, if you may. Apologies for the screen time. And now it seems like with respect to the MACD, if you look closely, we are slowly forming a curvature right now. So, and on top of the fact that RSI is highly overbought at the moment, we are above the equator line. So I think there's a high probability that we might actually come back down shortly, knowing the fact that whatever goes up really, really fast, especially with this fishy activity that we see in front of us right now, needs to come down just as fast, right? So with respect to the, excuse me, on the cheat sheet, right? It seems like we saw the last hurrah in the complacency stage, and some people are even discussing, are we in the euphoria stage? I would say, it's definitely a good question that you've raised, but it's definitely leaning more toward a complacency stage at the moment because we've consolidated, for on a sideways fashion historically, in the last last week or so, a week and a half so far, and then we see the last hurrah, and after the last hurrah would be subsequent, and I would say consecutive of negative news going forward to drive some fear among public investors, drive some fear mongering, right? And I've been getting some good questions from my friends here on YouTube. Are we going to keep going up, or we're going to see a sell-off? I think based on the setup right now, it's definitely leaning more of a bearish side of the spectrum. I think the risk is definitely increasing, so the profile is definitely not the most ideal in terms of like if you want to buying at the current moment right now, right? So with respect to my frames of reference, again, these are my frames of reference, and these are only for my, um, you know, personal holdings level at the moment right now, right? But I think, if you are an investor, would you be incurring risk when, we're trading a relatively high premium in a short-term perspective? Or would you be, looking at more of an optimal level for you to buy it when the risk profile is a little bit more depleted? I would personally choose the second. That's just my personal preference. Number one, I do have a relatively large holding of 55 Ethereum at the moment. So you do have to take that as a grain of salt, right? But in terms of the risk profile level, we still see a relatively high probability of selling off because the RSI is still overbought, and on top of the fact that MACD has been, just looking at the chart recently, right? The surge has been relatively fishy. That I think the reward versus the risk ratio is relatively imbalanced, that the risk is definitely much higher than the reward that you get potentially. So I'll still stay within this frame of reference from 3,000, 2,050, 2,450. It seems like the levels are far away. However, with respect to the cycle that we will see going forward, it needs to go through that oscillation, right? And I think there's a high likelihood that we'll actually come back to the low 3,000 and even possibly hit below to the mid 2,500. So that's where I will actually practice patience going forward and just wait. It's no reason to be rushing into investing. There's no expiration dates. But if you want to, feel like you want to be buying now, that's your risk aversion. That's your risk tolerance. Long term wise, in the next 12 months, 9,800, 3.3 times your money would be, the level that we ideally look at, right? And I foresee that someday we might even hit like $25,000 or $50,000 someday in the next 5 to 10 years from now, right? So something we could be thinking of, it could be a huge discount, or it could be a huge premium depending on your personal risk perspective, obviously, right? So it's a quick one. Hopefully this is helpful today. I apologies, with the poor sound quality. I don't really have a lot of gadget on me, or knowing the fact that my video quality is already kind of not the most optimal. I still need to fix up the lighting, the camera, and obviously the voice. But really appreciate you guys for showing support on a daily basis. And feel free to give me a shout if you have any specific questions. And stay tuned for this. Come up. Take care. Bye.